again, it turns quite ugly. Like, you know, this is supposed to be a time of kind of solemn respect.
Hello, hello, welcome back. My name is Phil Marriott. This is Raj Rudolph. And this is also Sean Vickers. We are Boys on Film. Today reviewing Wet Sand, directed by, and forgive me if this is the wrong pronunciation, Elene Naveriani. It stars BB Sesitashvi, who plays Mo, Gia Agumava, who plays Amnon, and Meggie Kobaladze, maybe Meji, not sure, but she plays Fleshka. So it's a Georgian film. I think it's part Swiss. Sean, you've seen this. Raj, you haven't seen this yet.
Let me try and set the scene a little bit. So imagine you're in a very small, sleepy village on the Georgian Black Sea. It's kind of very pedestrian, very quiet, very local. And the story follows what is the death of a character called Eliko, and really what transpires following the death of Eliko, and how really this sleepy village, which appears to be, you know, very kind of like warm and loving on the surface, really has some dark secrets underneath, and their views and behaviors around Eliko and around other characters really come to the surface once Eliko has passed.
There's a lot in there. I mean, story-wise, I thought the story was brilliant because there's a lot to unpack in this review, because it's basically a story about people stifling their true identity, isn't it? Because there's a lot of people wanting to live their life but not being able to because of people around them. I mean, I've kind of been there to a certain extent because I grew up in Cornwall, and very beautiful, idyllic, very small. Obviously, population-wise, there's not that many people living in where I was living at the time, and you know, as a gay person growing up, I found that quite difficult. But obviously, this is really pushed to the extreme. There's a lot going on, a lot of regret, I suppose, in a lot of ways as well, and learning from other people.
What I thought was interesting was prejudice and how prejudice surfaces. So, you know, this individual has lived in their town his entire life. Whether people have spoken behind his back or not, you never know. But what you see is basically at the point where that individual can no longer defend themselves, the true prejudice surface from this small village. And then you layer in our good old friend religion, and so you end up with this narrative around really someone, it's like a character assassination, but, you know, posthumously. Like, this person dies and then there was a character assassination about who this person is and what they stand for, and then how that individual is treated once they have died in this small village, which is kind of disgusting. There are two characters who try to defend, I guess, the individual and the spirit of this individual, which is Eliko's granddaughter, who comes from Tbilisi and is very hip and very big city, and people are very wary of her, and the chap that runs the cafe, and how he feels about Eliko and his story. And I won't say too much about that, but here are two people trying to defend the character of this individual posthumously, you know, in a village that really, I'd say on the surface looks idyllic and lovely, but really is quite insidious. And that's kind of the core of the story. It unpacks. I don't want to give too much away, but it unpacks as you go through the film. And I thought it was harrowing and brilliant and sad in equal measure.
Yeah, I thought it was really moving, and also I was quite appalled by how dreadful these people were, and there were lots of these dreadful people as well, because obviously they formed that neighbourhood in that small village, which, like you say, was very beautiful to look at, but the people in it were just really ugly in so many ways. But it's Amnon who's the main character. He runs the cafe. He's played by Gia Agumava, and he won Best Actor prize at the Locarno Film Festival. So he's obviously, you know, he's getting the good acclaim for his performance. It's quite a soft performance. He doesn't necessarily say that much.
I think part of Amnon's character, and again, not too many spoilers here, but I think because of how he's perceptive to the neighborhood, he's perceptive to the village, he kind of keeps his head down and he just gets on with it without really expressing too much about who he is as a person. And you get a bit more of that expression later in the film. you know, when he starts to dress in a different way, and people are like, what are you doing? And you've got that classic scenario as well, where there is one person in the village who is like the ringleader and the bully, and they all kind of fall behind that character because it's actually easier to do so. And so, yeah, you see some real human traits come through here, quite ugly human traits come through, which a lot of queer people will recognize. Yeah, it was very, very powerful.
You're right about that, though, because there's that scene where they're all sitting around to dinner. It's the wake.
Yeah, there's like lots of moments with the wake where, again, it turns quite ugly. Like, you know, this is supposed to be a time of kind of solemn respect and thinking back over someone's life, and it actually becomes quite ugly and distasteful. And there are further things in the film that are even more distasteful as the film goes on.
They're laughing at the dead man, and they're laughing at Amnon, who's sitting there, and you're right, because he kind of takes it in a way, because he's so silent. He's the silent, strong type in a way, who just gets on with his life, but doesn't want to feel kind of threatened or hurt by other people around him. But they're just vile, and there's no respect because they're doing it in front of his face as well, and he just kind of takes it.
I find Eliko's granddaughter a really interesting character because she's positioned kind of as, although she's young, she's worldly, so she lives in Tbilisi. You get the sense that she's outward looking from Georgia, and she has a sense of what's really happening in the world. And so when she comes back into this very small sleepy town, her character has this role of trying to present the way the world is. And again, she comes up against a lot of negative energy because of the way she is, you know. She's just basically like, I'm living my life. This is who I am as a person. This is who my grandfather was as a person. Again, she's equally, I think, under attack in the same way that Amnon is. It's a great film because it does quite a lot of hard work and covers quite a lot of ground while still being very gripping, and the way it's put together and the cinematography and the character acting is just spot on. You know, I think it's great. It's just not particularly pleasant watching at times.
It's not. It's quite a tough watch. I wouldn't say it's necessarily depressing. I think it's moving and quite melancholy. But I think it shows how humans don't respect others when they're living or when they're dead either. It's that kind of, you know, that human need that we all should have, that, you know, we should have respect and also a good send-off. And that, you know, the character who dies in this does get a good send-off with those loved ones who understood him, but it's still, you know, falling on deaf ears for the others, because the others just don't have any self-respect either. I don't think they're all they're losers, aren't they, ultimately?
Yeah, and I would say for any viewers watching this, you know, watch this film. It's a really powerful piece of cinema, but do go into it with your eyes open. It can at times be, as you say, it's quite melancholy and quite reflective as a piece of cinema, because you're looking at this situation and as you did, Phil, you're saying, oh, I can apply this to my hometown in Cornwall. And I'm sure people can do that from wherever they are, because there is a queer narrative here about shame and about not living your authentic self. And that comes through here. So I think people will watch this and reflect on their own lives. But I would absolutely recommend it. It's one of my faves so far of the festival.
Yeah, me too. It's definitely one of the films that really stood out so far, and I've still got loads more to see. But yes, it's a very strong 4 stars for me.
Same, very strong 4 stars.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Wet Sand. Check all the details down below where you could see it. We've got loads to cover.
Loads to cover.
Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Check out the playlist also, by the way, on the screen now for all the other films that we've covered. Yeah, playlist.
Where is it, Phil?